Right on, man. All right. Well, Cody, why don't you start us off by just introducing yourself and letting us know what you do at Brist?
I'm Cody Cikanek, and I am the general manager of all production, domestic production. So I handle all of the screen printing, heat pressing, um, sewing. I work closely with all of our partners. I do all of our samples. Work closely with pretty much every department on design, what we can, what we can't do. If we don't know how to do it, I'm the one that figures out how we do it.
I feel like if you had seven more pairs of arms, you'd still have your hands full.
Yeah, always. I'm
Uh,
always doing something.
and how long have you been at Brist?
I've been at Brist a little over 3 years now. I love it. It's
Hell
been
yeah.
great 3 years. Feels like 16 years.
Yeah, Brist sure finds ways to pack a lot into a little amount of time.
Yeah, I moved to Bellingham to work for Brist. I graduated in sculpture and been screen printing at a shop kind of all over Wyoming, all over Colorado for since I was like young. I was like 16, 17 when I started screen printing. And just kind of jumped around. I was managing a screen print shop in Wyoming, and I just kind of wanted to change. I was talking with a bunch of people in the community, and I met Christian, who was working closely with Brendan at Brist, and he talked me into moving out here and helping them run the shop. So it's fun,
Sweet.
kind of a long journey. I moved like out here in the middle of the winter. So it was just like a crazy, like going snowstorm to snowstorm. It took me like a week and a half to get out here. And I was like just sleeping on couches with some people I knew from Wyoming that lived in Bellingham. So I was just couch hopping and then finally got a place of my own here.
Man, I can't imagine what Brist would be if Christian didn't manage to convince you to move out. All right, well, I'm going to rattle off a couple quick ones. So, just to kind of get into it, at the time being, do you have a favorite song or artist that is really resonating for you on your day to day?
Black Sabbath is number one.
Nice, nice. And what's a
Kiss,
black?
Kiss is number two. Black Sabbath, Ozzy Osbourne.
So, what's a song by Black Sabbath that you feel like is underrated or people just never really realized was as great as it is?
Paranoid, probably pretty much all of his songs. I love everything about Black Sabbath. You know, everyone in production knows that we need to start cranking when Black Sabbath comes on. So that's my cue to tell everyone we're in busy season. It's when Ozzy Osbourne starts blaring.
Dope. Okay, so here's another question about like Black Sabbath. So Black Sabbath represents like an era in like metal that is, I mean, metal has changed so much as a genre. Do you still like going and seeing some of those like old great metal bands today, or do you feel like they've passed their prime in terms of a live performance?
No, I still love them. Like right before COVID, I went to the Misfits reunion tour, and those guys are all like probably close to their 70s, and I mean they killed it. I was having my life there.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah. All right. So now favorite movie.
Favorite movie, Alien. Aliens, the whole Alien series, Predator series. I'm a big, huge sci-fi horror film buff. I
Sweet.
have I have a half sleeve of a xenomorph.
So what do you think of the newer ones? The two newer ones, Prometheus and Covenant.
Oh, I love it. I love the whole concept behind it. I'm a huge Geiger fan. I love all of like the biomechanical artwork. Um, just like the concept behind it of other species creating like the Prometheus concept. You have they're trying to create a chemical weapon that creates life.
Yeah, dude, I totally agree. I know some folks who like kind of like die on this hill that Ripley Scott like lost it in making Prometheus and Covenant, and I'm like, no way, dude. Like such a good modern extension of the storyline. And like the character of David, I just thought was so interesting, and they're also like movies that you can just return to and rewatch time and time again.
Oh yeah, yeah. No,
Um,
I'm huge, huge collector. Going being a sculptor on the side, I love not like I collect all these action figures and like statues and stuff. I collect them for because I love half a lot of those sculptors that create the special effects for the movies. That's what they do when they're not making those films. They're creating like prop replicas and all this other stuff. I follow tons of people that have their own companies and they do like screen printing, they do like alien prints or they do alien sculptures and all this crazy stuff.
All right, next one. Okay. Do you have like a favorite food or even just like a favorite food in Bellingham?
Favorite food. So living in a landlocked state growing up, like my whole life, I lived in Colorado and Wyoming. You don't get really good seafood out there. So it's awesome living here with having like I can just walk down to the boating docks and like buy salmon, like fresh salmon off of someone, or I can go down like over to Chuckanut, go to Taylor's and get like a bunch of oysters. So it's I love like all seafood and sushi and
That's dope, dude. I know, I mean, I feel like it goes one or two ways if you're landlocked growing up, right? You either eat like five things that mostly come out of a box, or you get to like the coast and you're like, I gotta try everything, right? Have you been out to Drayton Harbor by any chance out in Blaine?
I believe so. I think I've been there once. They have like that oyster bar
Yeah,
out
dude.
there. Yeah,
They've got quite the operation. I love Taylor too, but like, dude, Drayton Harbor is just like salt of the earth, literally, and can't say enough good stuff about
yeah.
it.
I thought it was. I think I was out there and they have like the time they put you like they put like the time on when they like harvested everything, like farmed everything.
Dude,
Oh,
exactly.
that
I
was
I did a photo shoot for them probably in like 2018, I want to say. So I got to go out with them during like a full moon, like super tide, and like I mean, it's literally run by a father and son have been doing it forever, and they also were the ones who cleaned out that whole like coastline because for many years you couldn't harvest any seafood because of like all this waste that was there, and it was because of them that they were able to kind of get everything back in motion.
yeah, it was eye opening. I never even knew stuff like that existed until I came out here and saw it all.
Yeah, the what do they call them out in the Midwest? The Rocky Mountain oysters. Not into those.
Anyway,
So okay, now we've gotten into some of like the top level stuff. What's a I know you've had some wild stories that you've shared, and I've heard a couple of them before. But what is like a story that's kind of quintessential to who you are, whether it relates to screen printing or not, but like something that kind of is just like telling of Cody Cikanek.
there's a lot crazy ones. I think off the top of my head, how I got into screen printing is kind of interesting. There's a few of my good friends and I way back in the day, we were like 14, 15, and we were huge into like the graffiti skateboard, like old school skateboard culture. And I mean, we were just young metalheads, always getting in trouble for skipping class to go screen print or like go under this bridge and spray paint something rad. And then as we got older, we were like, hey, let's start our own skateboard company. And like our parents were all like we were all working at this same cattle ranch when we were young, so we had access to like a lot of tools, stuff we probably shouldn't have access to at that age. And so we found all these like I beams, and we ended up building a skateboard press. So my buddies and I, we all welded it together. We made this giant cement mold. One of our old woodshop teachers got involved, and like everyone like somehow wanted to be a part of this. So like everyone was coming over, and like then it turned into we're like building a half pipe at our shack, and like we had this giant skateboard press. We started like pressing our skateboards. We were making like all these custom cool skateboards for everyone. Turned into like a workshop. Then it turned into how are we going to decorate all these without having Cody hand paint everything for 2 hours of skateboard. So then we met this guy that was getting rid of all this old screen printing equipment, and it just like blew up. all of our parents were ready to kill us because I was like trying to expose screens by watching YouTube and like taking our shower head apart to create a makeshift dark room. So I like clogged the whole bathtub with emulsion. I like stained their whole countertops pink, destroyed the whole bathroom. My parents were pissed. They had to like remodel everything after I got my hands on it. And then we figured it out. We started screen printing like one color, two color designs on all these skateboards. We were selling them in town. Like a bunch of people were buying them from us. It was great. And then we kind of like all parted ways. And when I went to Wyoming, I ended up taking a lot of the screen printing equipment. And then I just started ever since then, I kind of had my own little screen print art studio set up. And I've always just been, what can I screen print now? This is a rad piece of art. Let's throw it on a t-shirt. Always just doing that. Like I remember I'd screen print exposed screens like in my dorm room in college. Screen printing always got me in trouble, but I was always told like, don't follow that passion. It's just a waste of time. It's just going to keep getting you in trouble. And it's just such a great community. Like just like the stories everyone tells, everyone kind of has the same stories. Like, oh yeah, like started in a garage, or it started as a hobby, and then I just fell in love with it, and you just kind of get sucked into it, and it just blows up. It's great.
That's rad, man. I definitely feel like there is like that punk ethic to screen printing where people are tied together by like those kind of subcultures of music and extreme sports,
Mm-hmm.
and art, graffiti. I feel like within the screen printing world, I do hear a lot of this. It's like such a non-corporate culture. It's
Oh
like
yeah.
it's people who have like you said, they started from their garages and have like these really unique like art backgrounds, which is super cool. Um, and I've heard about some of the stuff that you've done, but can you talk a little bit more about that? Of like screen. You're obviously a very like multimedia sort of like artist, but like, are there like certain projects that you're really excited about that you've done in the past, or things that you want to work on in the future, whether or not they're involved in screen printing but might be inspired by that process?
Yeah. I studied for about 6 years. I studied doing cast forms, which I do. I specialize in like big metal sculptures. So it's always been metal is a huge interest of mine. I like nerd out about it. I like look at all the like chemical compounds. I research like building cupolas and building forges and stuff, or like Damascus, all sorts of crazy stuff. So like kind of in my free time, I do make a lot of knives. I do like castings. I'll work with some people in town. I'll make like little castings. I'll do like skeleton hood ornaments for people for like rat rods. Um, Tons of weird stuff. And I always like come up with weird ideas. I try to like incorporate different medias with things. So I've been working on this table I do a lot of like resin cast tables. But I don't like to do just the normal, I'm going to pour resin in it. I like to incorporate something cool on the inside, or I'll do like little dioramas where I've made little zombie graveyards inside of tables. And then I've been trying to work on one recently. I don't want to make it too heavy and do a whole cast of metal, but I'm working on a table where I'm doing a full skeleton vertebrae on the inside of a river table with like a human skull, and trying to incorporate the nervous system. I've had two failed attempts, and I'm on my third right now. I just started getting into. I got a 3D printer, so I've been playing around with that and printing a bunch of weird monsters and stuff, trying to incorporate it with some cool art.
Dude, that's wild. Okay, then are you starting with like a piece of wood and then using resin and metal components, or is it like a metal table with resin and metal components?
Yeah, so I'll do the first one I attempted. I actually tried wax, which didn't work too well. The resin. So I had two pieces of wood, and then I sculpted a wax sculpture. Thought I cured the wax properly, and I threw it in the middle. But when I poured the resin into the table, it got really hot, and it was like a volcano, and it exploded wax everywhere. And I tried a few other things where I did a few small pieces of metal, try to connect it, but you get a lot of air bubbles, and there's lots of like weird cuts with things. So I'm trying to like kind of fine tune it and make it look nice. I got actually got in trouble in Wyoming because they have all these like willow trees that grow up, and there's like all the roots of the trees like cracked on the concrete in town on the sidewalks. So I actually did a bunch of like cement casts in the hands, and I went and cemented them in all the holes around town. So like I got in trouble because it was like a safety hazard. And the police department actually went to my art department and was like, "Hey, does anyone know who sculpts this?" And it was like immediately like five people were like, "Oh yeah, Cody does weird monster shit all the time." And then I had like the police department at my house, and I had to go like do some community service and remove all my zombie
Dude,
hands sticking out of the sidewalks.
that's the kind of stuff though where it's like, man, we should just let that happen. So one last question I have more as it relates to what you do in Brist is like, what's a project that you've done for a customer at Brist that where you really got to like learn and experience something new and push the boundaries to do something different? Because I know that that's seems to be a legend within Brist is like we go above and beyond to really execute on a level that exceeds expectations from the customer side.
Yeah, I think I mean every in general every day, every week, we're always feel like we always come up with a new story. We're trying to like how are we going to do this and make it awesome for the client. I think I told you that one story previously when we met was I had one guy. This is in the middle of COVID, and tons. I mean, we're trying to support everyone locally, everyone in town. And one of the local brewers came up and was like, "Hey, I want to make my crew these awesome, like big onesie Dickies like jumpsuits, like mechanic suits." And he's like, "I want them for like everyone on my team. I just bought them electric scooters. It's gonna be awesome." And I'm like, "Sweet man. I've never done this before, but let's figure it out together." And we're like texting back and forth. He's bringing me lunch. I'm learning about his business. I'm like, okay, well, let's incorporate that into your print if you like doing this for your employees. And we just kind of like hit it off. We're going back and forth, and then finally figured out how to do it. And it took me, I think, probably 20 minutes to do a single shirt. And I'm holding everything upside down. And like these are onesies, so I'm like tying the legs of the onesies up, and then I have like the arms wrapped around my head, and I'm trying to like screen print like in between the zippers of all these. At the same time, making sure I'm not like popping the screen. And then it looks like we had a bunch of just like limp, like was like car test dummies. Just looked like a bunch of those were like coming down the dryer and like falling on the floor. Like I love our production area. I try to treat it not like a standard print shop where you're just, you grab your job and you're doing commercial. Same thing every day. I want to treat it like 50% art studio, 50%. How do we do this really cool piece of art but make it efficient to produce? How do we make a profit? Yeah, and I think it's interesting too, like especially when we get lots of clients that do lots of reorders. And I think it's helpful for us in production, like when we get feedback from clients, we like, even though I will never meet some of these clients in person, but I feel like I know them on a personal level because they're some of the feedback I hear back in town or I hear back from other people. Like, okay, I know this one client, they want this type of print. I'm going to give them this type of feel. I'm going to change the ink up for this client because I know they're going to like that at the end. So it's just always getting to know them on a personal level and knowing like the niche of their business, we can kind of add a little piece of that to their product.
Dude, that's cool, man. I also just think that what you just described is like a level of consciousness that maybe not everybody has in the work that they do in the craft that they do. You know, is like always thinking about how can we respond to what this person is really looking for and have empathy for them on maybe a level that they don't even know about themselves. So that way when they get that stuff, it's like there's like something special about it, you know?
Mhm.
I went to audio engineering school and like one of like the most metaphorical like things I learned from one of my teachers was like if you've done a good job mixing a song, the only way you'll know is if nobody complains about it. Like very like the common listener doesn't go, man, the EQ on that snare is like particularly good. most people are just like, oh yeah, it's a good song. It's either it's a good song or oh, I hate this. So like a lot of times with design and art, it's really just like as long as you're not offending anyone, you are kicking ass. And then it sounds like you even go further than that, which is so cool to hear.
I feel you, dude. Next time you're in town, definitely come up. You can check out. My house is not. I'm surprised. My girlfriend is great. She lets me do whatever I want to the house. Like she'll come home and I just paint wall murals. I have like big alien going up our stairs, and I just painted like a couple of years ago a bear like ripping out of our garage door.
Yeah, that's amazing. I got to see that. Yeah, I mean, honestly, like just like you mentioned, man, like Alien is one of my favorite like universes and like sci-fi things out there. And it's, I mean, dude, it's just the level of detail. So like anyone who is like doing that, like yourself, it's just like it blows my mind because like so much of what I do is very 2D. Like graphic design, I mean, you're always trying to create depth, but at the end of the day, it's typically digital or print, and it's there's not as much dimensionality as you get in like those crazy sculptures.
Cody, peacing out.
Awesome, man. Thanks so much, dude. Again, looking forward to hanging out in person when I'm up in Bellingham.
Yeah, man.
See
Cool.
ya.
See ya.